In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to install one of the Tusk motorcycle enduro lighting kits. The bike we're working on is a 2015 YZ250FX, and you'll want to remember that this kit is universal and the install is going to vary from machine to machine. The Tusk motorcycle enduro lighting kit comes complete with the wiring harness, front and rear turn signals, a horn, brake switch, tail and brake light, a folding mirror, and control switches, and we offer these for a wide variety of motorcycles. You'll want to first read over the instructions and get familiar with the install process, and then we can start with the install. Step 1 of the install is to route the wiring harness. So we're going to start by removing the seat, the tank, the shrouds, and any other parts to reveal the stock wiring harness. We're going to use this same route for our lighting kit's harness to make sure it's safe from any possible heat damage or abrasion. So as we run this harness, again we're going to avoid any pinch points by following the stock harness. You'll want to locate the front end of the harness up towards the front end of the bike behind the headlight. The rear of the harness should end up over the airbox. From there, we're going to start tying up this harness using the provided zip ties. Once we have the harness safely secured into place, we're going to sit the fuel tank back down into place since we won't need access underneath it anymore. You can see we've got the rear end of this harness ran right to the battery, and we'll be able to tuck it up neatly once we're done. The next step in this install is to mount the rear tail and brake light assembly. Since this bike uses the same rear fender as the WR, we're going to utilize the mounting points underneath the fender. So we'll just mark where those mounting points are located and go ahead and drill the holes. Remember that this kit is universal, so if your fender doesn't already have mounting, you can just drill some holes and install some bolts. We found that having 4 mounting points for this assembly works best, so we still need to secure the front end of it. For this bike, we already wanted to install a fender bag, so we're going to use this bag's mounting points to also secure the front portion of our brake and tail light assembly. So we're going to go ahead and mark each of those mounting locations and then drill them. But before we bolt this piece down, we're going to want to install the rear blinkers. So to do that, we're going to move over to the workbench and remove that one bolt in the back side of it. And we're also going to remove the rubber backing piece as well. Over on the bike, we're going to use that rubber piece as our template for marking the mounting holes in our rear taillight piece. Next, we'll go ahead and drill each of those holes. And then we're going to apply some medium strength thread locker to each one of those bolts, run the wires through the holes, and then bolt the rear blinkers. After we have both rear blinkers secured into place, we're going to pull that taillight assembly back off the bike so we can run those blinker wires up with the taillight wire, keep it away from the tire and out of the way. With the wires now ran, we're good to bolt that assembly back up into place underneath the rear fender. And next we're going to take those wires and run them up to where we ended the rear end of the wiring harness. With the wires now ran, we can attach a bullet connector to each wire lead. We're going to wait until a little later in the video to start connecting these wires. So the next step of this install is to install the brake switch. So we're going to clean up around the banjo bolt, then loosen up the bolts to this master cylinder to gain a little better access to the bolt. From there, we'll go ahead and pull the stock banjo bolt along with both crush washers. The new banjo bolt will include new crush washers for this. We like to then top this off with a little brake fluid to eliminate as much air as possible, and then we'll reassemble it with the new brake switch and new crush washers. You'll want to purge any air out of the system that you can, so we're going to press down on the brake pedal, and that'll start to force fluid out the top. Go ahead and tighten down the banjo bolt while you're doing that. From here, you'll want to bleed the brakes and make sure they're working properly after you've done that. You can refer to your service manual and our brake bleeding video for further instructions on this process. Next, we'll run the wire lead up towards the connectors on the rear end of the wire harness. Again, you'll want to avoid any possible heat or pinch points for these wires. Next, we're going to move to the front of the bike up to the bars and install both the control switch and the on-off switch. This step may require repositioning of other controls on the bars to make room for these new switches. After you've got the switches secured into place, run the wires down the bars to the area behind the headlight. You'll want to secure them in place using zip ties, again making sure they won't get pinched or pulled as the bars are turned. After we have both those switches installed and the wires ran, we can move on to mounting the horn. This is going to be specific to each bike or machine, and you have a variety of different ways you can mount this. The mounting bracket on the horn can also be adjusted to make it easier to mount. So on this bike, we chose one of the fan mounting brackets on the radiator just for ease of installation, since we're not going to be running a fan unit on this bike. For the front blinkers, we give you a few different options to choose from. If you chose the kit with the mini stock signals, we found the easiest way to mount these is to simply drill mounting holes in the headlight mask and secure them that way. If you chose to go with the handguard blinker option, just refer to the installation video we have for these. For this bike, we chose to upgrade to full wraparound handguards, so the provided shields and blinkers will just mount directly onto these, and we again have a detailed install video to help you with installation. The next step of installation is to take the provided battery harness and connect it to the battery. Obviously black will go to negative and red's going to go to positive. If your bike doesn't have a battery, you'll be installing the provided Tusk battery pack, and you use the provided Velcro and additional zip ties if needed to secure it into place. Choose a place that's safe from moisture and any other elements. We found the air box is usually your best bet. After that, we can start connecting wires. So from the wire harness, we're going to hook up the tail light, and that's going to be a 3-part connector. We'll tuck that away and then move on to the blinkers. The red wire lead coming from the left turn signal will connect to the orange lead from the harness, and the black lead from the left turn signal connects to the double black connector from the harness. For the right signal, the red wire is going to run to the light blue wire from the harness, and the black wire will connect to that same double black ground. The 2 black wires running up from the brake switch will connect to the 2 pink wires from the rear of the harness. There's no polarity here, so we can just go ahead and connect these. We're going to wait to connect the main power for this kit until we've connected everything else. So we're going to move up to the front and start with connecting the control switch. This one will be obvious because it's the one big connector up front. The white, dark blue, and black wires coming from the compact control switch are for your headlight. For this, you'll want to refer to our compact control switch installation video. So we'll just ignore these wires for now and move on to connecting the blinkers. These will be wired exactly the same as we did in the rear, so the left red will run to the orange from the harness, and the left black will go to the double black from the harness. For the right blinker, the red one's going to run to the light blue one coming from the harness, and the black one will run to that double black connector. The 2 red wires from the harness are for the on-off switch wires, which are green and orange. So we'll go ahead and connect both of those. Last but not least is our flasher relay, and this will be the blue and red wired connector coming from the front of the harness. You can mount this piece somewhere if you choose to on the bike. This bike didn't really have a good spot, so we're just going to tie it up with the rest of the wires once we're done. The remaining lead with the black and red wires coming from the front of the harness is for an optional front brake switch. For this, you'd need to purchase an additional Tusk brake switch, install it, and connect it to these 2 wires. Next, we'll move down and connect the horn, and these are the green and red wires from the front of the harness. These 2 wires don't have polarity, so we'll just connect one to each terminal on the horn. Now everything should be connected except for the power into the kit, so we're going to move back and connect the battery harness to the fuse connector coming from the harness. And now we can test everything. So we'll turn the main power switch to the on position, and that should turn the tail light on. We'll start by testing the brake switch. After that, we can check both right side blinkers and then both left blinkers. And finally, the horn. If you find you have any problems, you'll want to double check all your connections and the 5-amp fuse in the harness. Once everything is working correctly, we'll want to tie up any loose wires using the zip ties. The last step of this install is to mount the rear view mirror, and you can either choose to mount it in the upright position or upside down. In either position, the mirror can easily be folded out of the way for trail riding. This kit includes a left-hand mirror, but we also offer right-hand mirrors if you wanted to run one on both sides of your bars. If you decided to run your headlight through the Tusk compact control switch, refer to our compact control switch video for wiring instructions. This bike didn't come with a headlight stock, so an aftermarket headlight would need to be purchased, but we got ours installed and now we're ready to ride. The Tusk Motorcycle Enduro Lighting Kit, along with many other parts and accessories for your motorcycle, are available on our website, www.rockymountainatvmc.com. Thanks for watching.